In 1845, Ireland's potato harvests, long a staple of the Irish diet, began to blacken and die. A deadly fungus was ravaging potato crops throughout Europe. In Ireland, the blight caused a horrible famine that the Irish called the Great Hunger. It killed 1 million or more people and forced many others to leave the country. Many Irish people viewed the famine as yet another of the devastating injustices they had been forced to endure under centuries of English rule. The English conquest and domination of Ireland had begun with invasions in the 1100s. English and Scottish settlers colonized Ireland and took possession of most of the best farmland. Irish peasants were forced to farm land owned by powerful absentee landlords who controlled vast estates from their homes in England. Absentee landlords didn't demand only labor from the peasants living on their land. The Irish were also forced to pay high rents. And even though the vast majority of the Irish were Catholic, they had to give a portion of their earnings to the Church of England, which was Protestant. Irish peasants lived in desperate poverty. Under British rule, most of Ireland's farmland was used to grow wheat and oats that were exported to England. The potato, introduced from America, became the main source of food for most poor Irish peasants. That is why the potato blight, which struck in 1845 and lasted for years, was a death sentence to so many. Barley and oat crops were not affected, but instead of providing food to the peasants, absentee landlords continued to ship their crops out of Ireland. Many peasants had nothing to eat except grass, leaves, and the rotten potatoes. In public workhouses, desperate inmates traded hard labor for starvation rations of meager, watery soup. Starvation and disease spread throughout the Irish countryside. Whole villages were filled with the dead and dying. A growing number could not make their rent payments, and the landlords dealt with them swiftly and harshly. Those who could not pay their rent were evicted from their homes and left to survive any way that they could. Irish peasants realized that they were in a struggle for their lives. Many fought against their absentee landlords by refusing to pay rent and banding together to prevent evictions. However, Ireland was still a British colony at the time, and the absentee landlords had British law and British soldiers on their side. Irish nationalists turned to violence in their quest for reform and self-rule. They believed that the Irish people, not the English government, should govern Ireland. While the nationalists tried to liberate their country, the blight spread across all of Europe, claiming at least 1 million victims in Ireland alone. As starvation and disease swept the country, many were left with a frightening choice: abandon Ireland and live, or stay and die. With few options, approximately 1.5 million Irish left their homes and their families for America, a land of opportunity and hope. A few would return, but most would never see Ireland again. The desperate men and women who immigrated to the United States built new lives in some of the nation's largest cities. Though it was difficult to start over in a new country, the Irish immigrants and their descendants gradually overcame poverty and discrimination. Through patience, education, and hard work, the descendants of the men and women who migrated to America were able to win the fair treatment that the Irish of the 1800s had been denied.